I've bootstrapped Fayt. Like we've never taken a loan. We've never had any investors. Like when I started Fayt, like obviously I had no idea how to be a boss. I had no idea how to be a manager. Like I had never worked at anywhere more than a year. One of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten out of this whole experience of building a brand is like those personal learnings.
On today's episode of Agency, I sat down with Brittany Saunders. She's the founder and CEO of Fayt, the host of 2 podcasts, Big Business and High Scrollers, and a viral content creator. Fayt has almost 60 employees and is opening its 5th store here in Australia. She's experienced tons of success in a short period of time, from humble beginnings in Newcastle to OG YouTuber and now CEO of a retail empire. Join us as we unpack how she founded Fayt, her leadership style, some of her business challenges, how she overcame obstacles, her social media strategy, and so much more. Brittany, welcome to the pod. Yes, we're promoting, they're actually not an official sponsor, but we heard that this is your fave.
I don't know what it is about these. Have you ever tried one?
I've never tried a pink V.
Oh, so this is going to be like a first impression.
Unfortunately, I'm a Red Bull guy, but I'm happy to give it a crack.
Give it a go.
It looks delicious, so let's have a go.
Okay, we'll do some ASMR. Open. Wait. This is actually just an ASMR pod. We're here to test all the things.
The only reason we're here today.
For ASMR.
We'll do this for my book as well.
You do your crap.
All right, ready? 3, 2. Oh, yours is better.
Oh yeah, hear that? What do you think?
It's not bad.
It's not bad?
It's kind of sour. I see why you like it.
Yeah.
You like fruity stuff?
Yeah, but this is like fruity but a little bit sour. Like it's not too sweet that you get sick of it.
Yeah, it has
it's
like sour
fresh.
worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Still waiting for the sponsorship.
Well, cheers.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, V, get on it, guys. Brittany is taking off, and I'm sure she'd love to.
I wish I could know how many of those I've sold because I've been flogging that on my social media for months.
There you go. Maybe you just need to start your own competitor brands. Yeah. That might get them talking.
Yeah. All right. I'll write that down.
Brittany, welcome. I've been pumped, and I said this to you before we jumped on, which is I was excited to do this all week.
And it's Monday.
But then I'm like, yeah, but the weekends don't count as an entrepreneur. It's just like one giant week.
Every day is the same.
It's just mashes together.
I always say, I think not that it was ever one of my goals, but I think if you are on an entrepreneurial journey, I think a good goal to have is to, I know this sounds so lame, but it's true, like create a life that you don't want to escape from. I feel like when I was working full time, it's like I was hanging out for Friday so that it could be the weekend, or like hanging out for Christmas or whenever I was going to take annual leave. Whereas now, like I think one of the biggest accomplishments or achievements for me in my journey is I have created a life that I never feel like I need to go on a holiday away from.
So you get to feel like you're doing what you love every day.
Yes.
It's a passion project, something you're in pursuit of.
It's lame, like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But it's actually fucking true if you can get there.
It's true, man. Because people ask me all the time, like, how long do you want to run your agency before you sell out? I'm like, I want to run this until I'm dust. Like,
well,
this is my passion.
I feel the same. I meet so many people, like, obviously I just see myself as like a girl from Newcastle, like I'm still just newie. And then I like come to Sydney or go to events or whatever, and people are like, yeah, so what's your exit strategy? I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? You're like,
what is that?
Yeah, like that's never been, people start businesses and scale them because they want to exit them at their peak. Whereas like that's never been a thought in my mind until people introduced me to that idea.
I agree, because I think there's like maybe 2 types of entrepreneurs, right? There's that type that's like, I want to start a business to make money. And then there's someone like yourself who's just like, this is rad, this is interesting, let me go all in.
Yeah.
And then it turns into something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is scary to think like one day every business is going to end. Like it's scary to think.
It is kind of scary.
So it's like, where do you want to be when that happens? Do you want to see it out to the end? Which, is that really a failure? If you've had a great run and then you see the end of it, even if it like, crashes down at the end, like if you had an amazing time and like created so many memories in that time, is it the worst thing ever? I feel like in the business world, people would see that as a failure. You should have exited at the peak.
That's a good point, because it's like, a business has almost got its own lifespan in and of itself. And then even if you, let's just say Fayt outlives you and someone else takes over, it's a different era of that company anyway.
Yes.
So this era is kind of your era. It's like Steve Jobs with Apple.
Yes.
Now that Steve's gone, it's like not seen as the same thing anymore.
I know. And that's what I always think as well when people say like, oh, would you sell? I'm like, to who? Because I feel like Fayt is nothing without me.
Yeah.
But then it obviously could be if someone else took it over, because that's what happens with businesses. But I think it is different, and I know that we're going to talk about this, but like having that personal brand mixed in with the brand is how could someone else overtake it?
Well, that's an interesting point, right? Because you've been producing content since you were in your early teenage years. And I think for you, it sounded like your early journey was like, I want to do YouTube videos because they're fun, because they're interesting, and you got a kick out of your friends or kids at high school kind of seeing it, and even a kick out of like just doing it.
Yeah, it was just for the fun. And I think that's one of the most amazing things. And I think I feel really lucky that I did start that whole YouTube thing before social media was the way that it is now. Whereas like obviously now we've got a lot of people that are aspiring to be content creators, TikTokers, like everything. I don't know why I just said that, TikTokers. Anyway, just leave that in. Whereas when I started it, like there wasn't such thing as Instagram. There wasn't such thing as TikTok. Snapchat wasn't a thing. So it was just like, oh, what's this? Like, this is really cool and fun. I want to do this for fun. So I feel like my journey on social media couldn't be any more organic than it has been. And then my whole business journey has just organically flowed from that.
And for you, do you feel, okay, like that's a good point, right? Like a lot of people now feel the pressure, I have to do social media because that's the box I need to tick.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you were doing it before that was a thing. And for me, I remember when I was a kid, I was like 11 years old, and you know how people do curbside pickup and they just like throw their furniture out in the curbside here in Australia, and then a truck comes and picks everything up. I saw a Windows 95 computer from my neighbor, and I grabbed it and I like fixed it and I put Adobe on it, and I started learning how to use Photoshop just for fun. It was more of a hobby or a passion than anything else. I got a kick out of just making cool stuff and designing versus trying to produce something and make money from it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's been a bit of a superpower of yours? Like you were doing this before it was like quote unquote cool or like quote unquote the thing to do?
I definitely think it has made my entire journey a little easier for me, I guess. And I always say like I feel lucky, and my friend Anita always says, you're not lucky, it's hard work. But I do feel lucky in a sense that I did start when I did, because it was purely just for the passion and the fun. Like the fact that I then somehow built an empire out of doing that is like amazing. And I think it would be a lot harder now if I were starting today and I could see everything that's out there now. Like obviously we go on Instagram, we go on TikTok, we see all these established creators and businesses and personal brands.
It's a blueprint out there to follow.
Yeah,
somewhat,
and I feel like people would feel the pressure, and because everyone's obviously so good at content now, you're like, shit, like the pressure is on. Like this is what I'm going up against. Whereas because I was one of those first OG influencers before that was even a word, I feel like, yeah, I was in a really good position. But you've got to remember as well, like I posted a story the other day because I realized on our Fayt Instagram account, we'd done 5,000 posts. Like, you know, on your profile, it's like got followers.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, posts.
In how many years? It's been 5?
6 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6
six
years.
plus years. And I was like, shit. And then I jumped on my story and I shared that like on my podcast Instagram account. And I just said, this just goes to show, like, you can look at me and what I'm doing now. You can look at other brands and what they're doing now. But, like, that's 5,000 posts worth of work and testing and trialing and putting things out there and seeing if it performs well. And the crazy thing is as well is, yeah, we've done 5,000 posts and we're 6 years in and we're, you know, at this size. We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, there's no perfect plan, right?
No, like we're still trying to go, what's next? And like, what can we do next? Like, how can we make this blow up even further? So even after you've done 6 years and 5,000 posts and had a lot of success, there's still so much more to do.
That's a lot of work, because that's probably 2 or 3 posts a day.
Yeah.
Every day for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
And what's been your experience? Because like with Fayt, I think it's interesting that you started as a content creator first, then that word influencer got thrown around, and I think we both have feelings about what that word means and what it really is. And then you started a business. So like, how did you go from the trajectory of, okay, I'm doing this because I love it, I'm producing media because I get a kick out of it, to
okay, YouTube's monetized. Maybe I'm going to quit my job to, I'm going to start a company and like try to change an industry or shift the paradigm of what women's fashion is?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an interesting one. So obviously I was making those YouTube videos ages ago, started as passion, and then somewhere through that, that's when YouTube introduced monetization, like all the ads on the videos.
What
Then
year was that? Like 2011?
Oh, who knows? A lifetime ago.
Yeah,
I
it
remember
feels
I
like forever ago.
signed up to it because you had to have like a minimum amount of subscribers or something. And so then I was like, oh, this is cool. I can earn $1 here and there kind of thing. And so I started earning a little bit of money out of it. And I was like, I dropped out of school and then was working full time, like job hopping. I had like over 20 jobs up until the age of 21. And then when I got to 21, that's when I had 80,000 YouTube subscribers, which was a lot back then. This is 10 years ago. And I was working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And this is when brands had just started to clue on to the fact that they could pay YouTubers like me to promote their products. And what's interesting is back then it was the big brands paying us YouTubers. So like my first sponsorship ever was with Colgate.
Wow.
10 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't, we didn't have these small businesses that you see on
Like
social
this
media.
drop shipping
This-
era.
This was big brands. Like I worked with Coca-Cola, Sprite, Colgate, like all these big ones. So I threw in my job and thought, fuck it, I can do this. I can make this work. I was making just enough money to like cover my rent. I was living in a share house at the time. And so over the years from ages like 21 to 24, that's when my YouTube channel really blew up and went from 80,000 subscribers to over 1 million. And so then that's when all like the bigger brand deals started rolling in because obviously my numbers were going up. And throughout those 3 years of me like giving it my all, like I was pumping out 4 or 5 YouTube videos a week. Mind you, this is when we were doing like half-an-hour YouTube videos.
Yeah.
This isn't
Not
like
10-minute stuff.
not 30-second TikToks.
Yeah.
Like these were full freaking 30-minute vlogs of my life. And as that grew and I started to earn more money and then we saw the rise of Instagram. So I was saying to all my YouTube subscribers, you know, come on over and follow me on this Instagram app. And then brands jumped onto Instagram. Then we were getting paid to, you know, hold products up against our face in a selfie because this is before like videos were a thing on Instagram. It was just photos. So then I was getting paid to hold up all these products next to my face. And during all of that, I started to feel like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I didn't like really realize it, but now looking back, I can see like it started off as something that was fun, like those YouTube videos in high school. Then it blew up and it was all exciting. I quit my job. I got to do all these cool things. But then it got to a point where I feel like I'm only doing this to do these sponsorships to make my money because that's how I was living.
So the passion kind of seeped out and was like
it became
means to an end kind of thing.
It became an absolute chore. I got to a point where I hated making the videos. I hated setting up the tripod and get the ring light out. And hey, everyone, like I got sick of it. Like you would, I guess, any job that you're not like loving.
Was it because you were serving an ulterior purpose of like the brand that was paying you versus like, I want to make this because it's cool?
Yeah, because it just started as that fun thing. And then all of a sudden it was just all about the brands and the sponsorships and everything. So I always knew in all of those years of popularity that it was going to end one day. Like, I don't know. I just always would say, I do like Q&A videos back in the day on YouTube, like get your followers to send in questions and answer them in the next video. And a lot of the questions would be like, what are you going to do? Like, you know, long term and whatever. And I would always say, I know that this isn't forever for me. And I would always openly say that I knew that I wasn't going to be making YouTube videos forever. And thank God, because I couldn't. Like it's so much effort to make YouTube videos on your own. And I never got to a point of like hiring a team that was helping me edit or whatever.
So you were setting up the cameras, filming,
editing,
coming up with the scripts, the ideas, and
thumbnails,
editing all by yourself.
Editing, yep. Then flogging it on Instagram for everyone to go and watch. Like it was just a one-person show. And so throughout those years, like in my late teens and into my early 20s, like I always, like I feel like my whole life actually, like I always knew that I was meant to do something. Like I don't know if
Just a hunch.
It was, and I don't know if that's a real thing, but I feel like there are some people in the world that just grow up just knowing you're going to do something great. I know that's fucking lame to say.
What's the earliest memory you have of like, I'm going to do some rad shit when I get older?
I used to do dancing when I was little, like all the time, like for like 10 years. And I just remember like being on the stage and just like feeling this kind of power. Like it's so weird. But I remember just being on the stage and like having an audience staring at me and be like, yeah, like even though I'm like 8 years old,
Yeah.
like in a tutu or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I just loved, I guess I love like performing. So maybe that's where it came from.
Did you catch a bug? Like, was it in front of a real live audience or were you picturing this?
What do you mean?
So like when you were 8 and you were dancing, were you
Yeah.
actually performing to an audience?
Yeah.
Oh, so this is real. Like you weren't
Like
like
when I'm
imagining
doing a
what- yeah,
concert
yeah,
or
okay,
whatever,
yeah.
like I would like get this feeling.
You get a
like,
buzz out of it.
Yeah, like I just loved it. Like I love being on the stage. So I think maybe that's where that feeling started. And then just back in high school, like as soon as I turned 14, like I was like, I'm going to get a job. Like I applied for Macca's as soon as I turned to 14 and 9 months. And I was there like straight after my 14th birthday. So I just had this like desperation to earn money. And then like, yeah, I had over 20 jobs in my teens, from fast food, restaurants, retail. I tried it all, sales, and then I ended up working in offices as my last kind of thing, like full time.
Did you find like going from job to job, because 20 jobs by 21's a lot.
Oh,
So
I would work places like for 1 month,
Yeah.
and then I'd go, fuck this, I hate this, on to the next.
Was it like a frustration of like, I could do it better, or I don't like this, or it isn't a fit? Like how did you?
I just didn't I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't pinpoint one thing. It's not like, oh, the manager was rude at that one, and then, you know, it was the environment at this one. It was just like, this isn't for me. And like as soon as I would know, I'd be out of there and applying for the next job, which was a terrible habit to get into, but I guess a good one as well, because you don't want to get stuck in a job that you absolutely despise. My resume was shocking, but then I'd just lie. Like I would just leave them all off and then like extend that job for a year.
I was here for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got to freaking call references, surely. That's what I
Yeah.
used to think. But yeah, I guess just from an early age, like I always felt like I knew that I wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was. And then that's when obviously I discovered YouTube. So I was like, yeah, like here's this thing that I can do kind of thing. I think I wanted to do something for myself. And throughout my late teens, when I was working a billion jobs and making those YouTube videos, I didn't realize it at the time, but I tried my hand at a couple of little businesses, and I didn't even know that they
I
were
heard you
businesses.
did spray tanning in your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For your friends.
Yeah.
For like 15
so
bucks.
set up
Yeah.
spray tan business. Like I didn't set it up properly at all. Didn't have an ABN or anything. It was just 15 bucks cash in hand. Like, you want me to come to your house? I'll $5 extra and I'll be there. Like 20 bucks. I was absolutely ripping myself off. I just did anything and everything. Like anything that like a family friend would say, do you want to do this? Yes. Like I'm there. I'm doing that. And then I also, I don't know how old I would have been, like maybe around 20. I had a little skincare business called NKD that I started with a friend. It was when we saw like Frank Body, like I don't know if you know Frank Body
Yeah.
coffee scrubs. Like
Yep.
that's when they started. I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I started this coffee scrub thing with my friends, and I was like making the coffee scrub at home and like shipping it out from home. This was when I was like in my early YouTube days still. So I guess when it came to starting Fayt, it wasn't like, I know people would look at Fayt now and be like, oh, wow, like this is
It's up and
grand.
coming, right?
Yeah,
You're about to open
it's-
your 5th store in
Yeah.
Parramatta, and it's talk of the town, and everyone around Australia is like watching right now.
Yeah, but like I will openly say, like when I started Fayt, it wasn't this grand idea. Like I know a lot of people think like, oh, you must have had a great business plan and you wanted to do women's fashion and like change the landscape
It wasn't
of
like
fashion.
this miraculous defining moment. It kind of just
was another one of
snowballed out
those
nothing.
things. Like
yeah.
I tried the 20-something jobs. I tried the YouTube. I tried the spray tans. I tried everything. Yeah, okay, let's give this other thing a go too. Like I didn't think beyond that moment of starting it then. I didn't think one day it's going to be this. Like everything after that has just been a fucking surprise.
So what was the genesis of the idea of Fayt? Like what was it at that time? Like where did it come from? What was the hunch?
Well, I'd obviously, because this was when my YouTube was really popular. So I had obviously worked with so many brands by this point. I was working with clothing brands. I was doing hauls on YouTube, like getting these clothes from other brands, trying them on, doing a try-on haul is what we called it. Working with skincare brands. So I
try and
guess
hold like when you try a bunch
when
of
you
stuff
try it
on,
on,
you
like,
film
oh,
it.
I got these
this is where I
products
got
from so and
everything.
so. Yeah, like so before Instagram Reels and TikTok. Like we would do that shit on YouTube. So I guess it sprung off the back of that.
Yeah.
And just, I guess I must have been thinking, like, if these other brands keep coming back to me and keep paying me like $5,000 to make a YouTube video, then like, why don't I do it myself? But again, like, I can't stress enough of like how much of a small idea Fayt was. Like, I didn't even think like 3 months beyond launching it. It was just like something, yep, I'm going to do this right now in this moment in time and see what happens, much like the coffee scrubs at home.
I think that's important though, because a lot of business owners that want to start something think they have to have this big grandiose master plan with everything figured out through to like the messaging and the content, all the rest of it. Whereas most ideas from most entrepreneurs I talk to, it's like they had a little tiny idea.
Oh, yeah.
And it just rippled into the next, into the next, into the next, and then it turns into something.
The only thing that I knew how to do was content, because I had had this YouTube channel since I was in high school. The rest, I had no idea. It feels like just yesterday, I remember sitting down on my laptop and Googling how to ship parcels, like how to set up a Australia Post, My Post business account, how to set up a Shopify store, like quite literally everything that I know now, I have just learnt on the go. And I think that's the only way that you can learn how to do business. Like, you can be like a natural leader or whatever, but all the other shit that comes along with owning a business, you just have to try it, do it wrong 99 times, and then the 100th time you'll get it right. But that's me even now.
Like the old light bulb story, like, you know, do 1,000 things that doesn't work and then one thing does work. But in this case, it maybe had a little bit of success and then you just kept adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah. And then I guess having trust in yourself and like making those next steps. Like, if there's one thing that I've learned from my business journey is just say you've started something and you're getting some momentum with it, like you then have to take that next scary step to keep it going, kind of thing.
What was the earliest moment you had in Fayt's, I guess, genesis, where you went, okay, I've got this big audience from content creation and now I'm building this business because I've got a little bit of experience like through the brands I've worked with. At what point were you like, whoa, this thing's really starting to take off and I'm getting a little scared?
I guess the first scary thing was moving into my first warehouse.
That sounds like a big leap though.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot between starting and that, but that's
so
awesome.
It was in my shed. We had this double garage underneath. Like, luckily we lived in this townhouse rental and it had a big double, like probably even like double and a half garage. And I said to my partner, AJ, because I've been with him since Fayt started, I said, you're losing your car spot. Like, you have to park on the street because this is where I'm going to put my stock and my e-com area. Taught myself how to do e-com photography, everything. And so we just had all the stock like in Bunnings plastic tubs just lined up on the ground and a desk. And then I had my e-com backdrop. I would use girls that I know to come, I want to take some photos of you. And then it got to a point pretty quickly where I thought maybe I should get my own space for this and move out of the shed. So then I began looking at commercial real estate and found our first warehouse, which was like 90 square meters. Like, it was tiny.
Yeah.
But I remember that being so scary for me because the rent was like 35 grand a year. And like, we were making more than 35 grand a year. And I had like one employee at this time who was working casually, just like as a general helper. And I remember, first hiring her, how scared I was to do that. Because I was like, what if I don't have enough things for her to do? What if I don't have enough money to pay her? Like, what if I don't make enough money to pay her?
The responsibility just amplifies because now you're responsible for others and now you have a commercial contract
I'm paying
you can't back out on.
Yeah. So those two things, like hiring the first person and moving into that first warehouse, was really scary. But I guess from that, in those early on days, I learned, like if I do these scary things that feel like the right thing to do, like that's when the magic starts to happen. And I signed a 12-month lease at that first property. And I remember thinking, shit, like 12 months, like that's really long, you know. You learn later on that 12 months in business is like 5 seconds. And we, like before the 12 months had hit, we'd outgrown that space. So then we moved into our second one, which is then where we saw our retail store, our first retail store in Newcastle come to life. It was kind of a fluke. I don't know if you've heard that story.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll share it with you. This is one of my favorite stories. My poor partner AJ's heard this 5,000 times. So we were in this 90 square meter shed And by this point, I had one full-time employee and maybe like 2 casuals. And we were all just all-rounders. Like no one had defined roles. It was like we're packing orders, doing customer service emails, we're shooting content, uploading the images to the website, the whole lot. We're counting inventory. We're all doing it together. And we'd outgrown that warehouse. And I remember thinking, I want to have a building that also has a little office in it, because we were literally just working in a cold shell warehouse. So I began looking and I stumbled across this big building in Newcastle. It was 500 square meters, so a lot bigger than 90. And it had like a stunning office upstairs, which is where we are now. It's done a full circle, but maybe I'll get to that later, but it's a long story. It had this stunning office upstairs. It had a warehouse attached, so I was like, perfect. And then the only thing was it had like a showroom downstairs, and it was huge. And the rent was 120 grand a year compared to the 30 that I was paying.
A big leap. Yeah.
And mind you, I had like 1.5 employees at the time. Like we didn't need a 500 square meter building. I remember saying to my partner, AJ, like I was just in love with the building because the office upstairs was amazing. And he's like, what the fuck would you do with all that space? Like you do not need that much space. And I said, well, we could open a shop downstairs. Like we could just take some of the stock that's sitting on the website and set up a shop down there. And he was like, come on. Like, and then I just sat on that idea for ages. And yeah, long story short, I ended up going and viewing the property, and then I applied for it and signed a 3-year lease. And then that was even more scary because I was like, fuck, 3 years, like that's really long. And that's the story of how our first store came to be. It was only because that building that I found had a showroom downstairs. And I think if I hadn't have found that building, I never would have had the idea to open a store. Never. Like I think that was a bit of fate. Pun intended.
And a bit of justification for AJ. Oh, yeah. AJ, like think about all the great stuff we could do with it.
Oh, yeah. So that's how the first store came to be. And that was all it was ever going to be because we had it right there. Like we would work upstairs in the office and then we would all go downstairs to work when the shop was open, like because everyone was just an all-rounder. And then the only reason that we then went on to open 3 more stores after the one in Newcastle is because our community was asking us for it. I remember after opening Newcastle, we'd been open for like, let's say 6 months or whatever. I was still figuring, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to run a store, like nothing. And our community would write on socials like, when are you going to open in Sydney? Like, when are you going to open in Melbourne? And I remember I would get these comments and be like, what do you mean when am I going to open somewhere else? Like, that's not part of the plan. Like, that was never a thought in my mind. And it was just our community hounding us on socials like that got us to the point of like opening the second one, which is in Sydney in Westfield, Miranda. And then it's kind of been a bit of a snowball after then. Like 6 months later, we opened one in Brisbane. And then like another 6 months later, we've opened in Melbourne and now about to do the 5th one. So yeah, it was because of finding that building and then our community hounding me. That's why we've opened the stores. And it turns out it's actually a really good idea.
I just love that. I love how like organic this has been. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that most businesses start this way. They're very organic. They're kind of like one idea leads into the next.
Yeah, that's all my journey has been. It's just building on the start of it, and here we are.
And then regarding the showroom floor, I imagine you were producing a lot of content at that time of like you in the store.
Yes, so that's
then
when
people's perception was like, oh, she has a store, therefore maybe she's going to open another, and then the pressure.
Yeah, so I guess I'd posted like behind the scenes videos of my life, obviously, like in the years prior to opening that store, but it was more like a vlog of my day and going to get my hair done and let's go get my nails done, like the YouTube-y content, or like do my makeup with me. So I remember when I was opening that store, I started to use my Instagram to show, like I was showing us painting the change rooms and stuff. And I remember being scared to post that content because that's not what I would usually post for all those years. And it was around this time that we moved into that second big building that I was really done with YouTube. Like I just flogged the dead horse too much. So I think I did a couple of YouTube videos about it. But that's when I started the whole like behind the scenes showing my business thing and come to work with me today. So that's when I started getting into that.
The same kind of concept, but just you were scared that it wasn't going to resonate or it was going to turn your audience off?
Because my audience, when I went from doing, like 4 or 5 YouTube videos a week to 2 to 1 to one a month. And like, that's how it would happen. I'd get back on the YouTube channel and be like, hey everyone, sorry I haven't made any videos lately. And it was very much like, my audience was a lot younger then, because obviously I was younger. And it was like, we miss your YouTube, and like, are you ever going to come back? And because I'd done it for so long, I definitely did feel guilty. Like, I had this attachment to the YouTube channel and the subscribers, because they'd obviously essentially watched me grow up, like from teens to early 20s. I remember thinking, like, what if they don't want to see me going to work? But I just kind of lent into it and like fully changed my content. And now if you go on my Instagram, the whole thing is just one massive promotion for my business. Like, I don't promote other brands anymore, just organically. I'll show the V's and whatever. But now it's like done a full circle for me, because, you know, I started those YouTube videos for the fun, showing what I love. Then it turned into this cash cow thing to me, getting over it. And now it's back to kind of what I had originally started it for. The only amazing thing in it for me is I get to promote my business at the same time, but it's completely organic. So like, now I'm back to having fun with my social media, and it's just a bonus that
do you
it
feel like the
Fayt.
pressure's relieved because you don't have this 30-minute like high production video? You can just do snippets and 30-second reels and things that are like quick and easy.
It has gotten a lot easier in terms of that as well, like with the short form content. But even then, like, I know Instagram now allows us to post reels up to 3 minutes. So like, even some of my vlogs that I have been doing, I've been going to the 3 minutes, and I think people are starting to like that a little bit more. I think we went from that YouTube era of watching 1 hour vlogs. So obviously then over the years, Instagram and TikTok has made all of our attention spans really, really short. But now I think, and especially like with the rise of podcasts as well, people are kind of wanting to see that more longer-ish form content. And I think on TikTok as well, you can do like up to 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, they seem to be going back the other way where they make it longer again.
I know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like in 6 to 12 months, it'll be back to like 15-minute videos.
I know, it's like, make your mind up, social media. Yeah.
To be honest, like, I would actually prefer that, because sometimes I'm like laying in bed at night on TikTok, and like, I'm so shook by like how fast I'm actually flicking through the videos. Like, it can't be good for us.
Probably not.
No. Like 2 seconds, nah. 2 seconds, nah. Like,
yeah, it's like you're validating whether it's good or not.
Yeah.
The algorithm just gets sharper and sharper.
One thing that made me realize that was going off topic here, but TikTok, and here's a life hack for everyone. If you're going on a flight, TikTok now allows you to download videos to watch offline.
Oh no.
Yeah, so if you go into your TikTok settings, you can download up to 120 minutes of free, or not free, but download them so you can watch them when you're on airplane mode. So I did that when I was going to Melbourne the other day, 120 minutes. I was like, that's perfect. Like, that's the flight time to Melbourne essentially. And it made me realize, because you only get those 120 minutes worth of TikToks. So you can't like load more.
So you're burning through stuff you don't like.
Yeah. So then I was like intentionally watching the whole TikTok, and it made me realize how much we don't watch the whole thing.
Yep.
So give that a go, and you'll see just how much you have no attention span at all. Because I went to skip it. I was like, wait, I better go back and watch the whole thing, because it's chewing into my 120 minutes.
It's kind of funny though, watching people on flights without social media, because they're like, what do I do? Take a photo of the sunrise? You know, like things like that. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You can watch TikToks on a flight now.
That's new. I had not heard of that. So, okay, regarding your personality on social media, because I think this is an interesting topic for people, which is, you know, do I act myself? Do I create an alter ego? Like, what percentage of my life do I disclose to people? For you, have you, as a content creator, had a dilemma around how much of yourself that you show and how curated it is?
Yeah, not so much now, but definitely back in my YouTube days. That's when I was obviously sharing a whole lot more of my personal life, because I didn't actually have anything to share other than my personal life. Like, it was just me in my day-to-day life around my house, which was fine for me to do back then. Like, I was in my early 20s, like, I didn't know any better. But I wouldn't say at any point did I ever like overshare, or like, I don't have any regrets about the things that I did share back then. Like, I really heavily shared like a past relationship of mine on my TikTok. And then when that all came crashing down, it was very public.
Right.
And then that's when I really felt like, fuck, like I've really
missed. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
What, you know?
Oh yeah. It was like news articles, everything. Like, it was
My
crazy. So I guess it's been good in a sense that my content has shifted more towards business now, even though it still feels very personal and fun. When you actually take a look at my content, I'm not actually sharing that much about my personal life.
Yeah, it's just you kind of joking around day to day at work. Yeah.
I'm not actually talking about my feelings or like my private life. Like everyone knows my partner AJ, and he like features every now and then in the TikToks and Reels. But yeah, it's been really good, I guess, to go from that like heavy YouTube lifestyle to still doing content now full time, but kind of taking a step back, because I think you definitely do need to be careful of what you do share online. I mean, because you never know who's out there, and like you're sharing information, and once it's out there, it's out there. There's no turning back. And I think you need to have an element of privacy in your life.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess I'm definitely more mindful now of like what I'm actually talking about on socials when it comes to my personal life.
And then your persona, like the way you portray yourself online, you're kind of, you know, self-deprecating and making fun of things and being really funny and making fun of stuff. Like that kind of energy sounds like that's naturally you.
Yes.
Right. What's your opinion on people who try to create a persona or then don't feel like they naturally have that?
I think it would be hard to try to portray yourself in a different way online. I guess I can't speak from experience because I feel like all I've ever done is just be myself on social media. And again, I think that all comes from starting when there wasn't all these influencers to look up to. Like I didn't have any aspirations to show that I'm living a certain life. But for me personally, showing up as myself is the easiest way to show up on social media, because you don't have to pretend, to be someone else or make your life look a certain way. But I do know a lot of people do struggle when it comes to building a personal brand, and like the number one thing that they'll say is, oh, well, I'm too boring, or like I don't have anything to talk about. And again, I think that comes from them comparing themselves to people that are established online now. But you've just got to think again, like I mentioned, those 5,000 posts on the Fayt account. If you go back to the start of anyone's personal brand, I mean, it's different now. Some people go on TikTok today and blow up and become an influencer overnight, especially like just over in America.
Yeah.
But like for a lot of us, like especially me, I mean, I've put a lot of my YouTube videos on private because they're absolutely embarrassing. But if you were to go back to those first few YouTube videos of mine, I was boring. I had nothing to talk about. I was sitting in my room at home like, hey guys, like, like really shy. I got this eyeshadow palette from Kmart. Like that's literally what I was like. I think it's just a matter of like obviously starting when it comes to content and finding what it is that you want to talk about. Like what are your passions? Like what do you want to post on social media? Like everyone has something that they're like really interested in. For me, I think it was just generally entertaining people. Like I didn't have like a certain niche. I was starting out on YouTube doing vlogs, but then also makeup, and then I was doing a bit of comedy, and then I was doing skits. Like I tried it all until I really found what it was, number one, that I enjoyed, but number two, what resonated with audiences the best. And then I stuck with that. And kept going. And
it sounds like your advice is like in that, just be yourself. Someone will find it interesting perhaps.
Oh, there's a niche for everything, especially now. Like it doesn't matter how niche the thing is that you're into, whatever the hobby is. Like there's an audience out there for that, especially on platforms like TikTok. Like you can get stuck in every corner of TikTok. There's like a corner for every single thing in the world on TikTok.
And then regarding Fayt and how it interlocks with your personal brands, obviously a lot of your content creation kind of fed the beginning of Fayt, and then that kind of growing its own legs, and then people seeing what you were doing with the business.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, okay, Fayt's really starting to become its own entity outside my personal brand?
Ooh. I do find that interesting because obviously Fayt is my life. I feel like Fayt is me.
Yeah.
But then I know for a fact that there's probably people that shop at Fayt that have no idea who that I am.
Isn't that weird?
Yes, it's very weird. Or like, especially for our Westfield stores, people probably walk in, buy stuff and walk out.
Like, what a nice store. Yeah.
They have no idea. So that's definitely a weird thing to think. But when do I feel like that happened? I guess it would have happened like when we started to experience more growth, and maybe when we started, doing like Facebook ads and stuff, where you are going out there and trying to find those audiences that are at the top of the funnel, and like just
so it's not just your audience anymore. It's like, how do we target a new market segment?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you'd be discovered from everywhere. Like someone could follow me and follow Fayt and shop with us, but then they could recommend Fayt to a friend and that person recommends it to that person. And then it's just this chain effect. And then all of a sudden you've got all these customers that are shopping with you and have no idea who you are, which I think is really cool. And I think it's hard because as much as Fayt continues to grow, then obviously so do I, but you also want it to grow away from you as well. Like you want it to be broader than just you eventually.
Have you had like a discussion with your team around like how that continues to grow? Like have your team seen how much your personal brand contributes to the brands and then how much Fayt's kind of, becoming its own entity, if you will? Have you discussed like how that dynamic's going to, I guess, evolve, or are you just kind of like watching it?
We're just kind of watching it and winging it. And I think like the girls at Fayt like know that Fayt is Fayt on its own, but they also do know like the power that I have in Fayt, and they will obviously use that to their advantage. Like whenever we're creating a video or whatever, like they're like, Brittany, you get in the start because people will want to see it because you're in it at the beginning kind of thing. And I'm all for that. I'm like, use me in all the content that you want. But I guess we don't have a real strategy of separating Fayt from me. But I guess we do in ways as well, like when we're shooting photos for our website, which is like every week or every second week, like for a long period there, we would just use me because I'm right there and I'm free. Like I cost nothing to model. But now like we try and strip it back and like I'm on the website, but not every single photo is me kind of thing. So just trying to like remove me from certain areas of it, I guess is a strategy of ours.
Then regarding your personal brand as, you know, a content creator and someone who's now a CEO of a team of 60 people.
Yeah.
My goodness. I've got 30 and I'm like, man, 60. So you have 2 podcasts, you have multiple sub brands underneath Fayt, the way I understand it. And you're the CEO of this enormous company that's scaling very aggressively. Do you feel a lot of pressure around the content? Do you feel the need to perform? Like, what's that like trying to juggle all of this all at the same time?
I don't feel pressure with the content at all. I think that's the easiest part for me.
That's your go-to. That's easy.
Yeah. Like I've obviously done content for so long now that as organic as our content seems, and a lot of the time it is really organic and off the cuff and like, quick, let's do this. Like it is also very clever. And very thought out. So I don't feel any pressure when it comes to our content. Like we're always trying to stay ahead of the trends. Like we always say, like in our marketing meetings, like we don't want to be jumping on the trend that happened last week. Like let's make a trend so people want to copy us. I think if anything, the most amount of pressure that I feel is trying to do it all. Like being in my position, like I think where I feel more pressure or I put more pressure on myself is like being a really good boss and being a really good manager and being there for my staff and caring about their feelings, like that plus then like everything I do for my personal brand and having my podcast and writing those every week and then being in content, like all of that together, I think is really hard to manage. But I think that's just something that like we as creators and CEOs put the pressure on ourselves. Like, oh, I've got to be the best. I don't want to upset anyone. I want to make sure all my employees know that I'm here for them and I'll help them in their roles, but then also trying to do my role. Like it can feel like a lot sometimes.
It's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no matter how many people like I find that I hire, like my hats just still keep growing. Like I'll hire you there so you can look after that. But then something else over this side pops up. So it's really never ending. But I think I do an okay job.
Yeah, you're crushing it. Like, what do you think has been that maybe the biggest challenge out of all those things that you just mentioned about, you know, trying to become the CEO of this rapidly growing company and wearing all these new hats that aren't just content creation? I guess once upon a time, 60% of your day-to-day might have been making content and feeding, you know, I guess the beast, if you will. And now it's like all these other channels are opening up. Now you're having to conquer all this new territory.
What's been my biggest challenge?
Yeah, what's been your biggest challenge as a CEO, as someone growing a company this quickly?
Getting the right people in the business.
Okay.
Like I've always said that I personally think, and I think a lot of other business owners would agree, that I think staffing and people is the hardest part of the business. I can do the scaling, I can do the content, I can do the finances, I can know when I need to slow down on spending money, I know when I need to spend money to grow more, but just like finding those right people to be in your company, like your employees, when you are trying to scale is one of the hardest parts. We've done it really well. Like, we have an amazing team. Of course, we've made some absolute fuck ups and we have been absolutely fucked over like any business owner would be. And people are like, really? Like, people would do that to you? I'm like, yeah. People are fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter who you
For
are.
the most part,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter if you're Brittany Saunders and Fayt the label. Like, people will still come and take the absolute piss out of your company. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I guess it's finding the right people to fill the roles and like knowing when to create those roles, because obviously the more we scale and the more stores we open, like, we're not just managing it the same old team. Like, we're then continuously having to create new roles to sustain the opening of more and more stores, you know? So I think it's just like being on the ball with that, which I think I am good at, is like knowing, all right, we need someone more in this area. We need another manager in this area. We need someone else in retail. But yeah, I'd just say the biggest challenge is finding those right people and obviously doing all the hiring and everything in order to keep scaling. Because our community's like, open here, open there, open Adelaide. I'm like, whoa, hang on. Like,
Yeah.
I can definitely do that, but I'm going to need to hire a whole new team of people in our head office to facilitate that.
How have you gone about finding the right people? Because going from e-commerce centric to retail centric and then having multiple retail stores requires a lot of middle management.
Yes.
Have you had other entities come in and help facilitate this, or you purely done it through hiring the right people?
Hiring the right people. So we do everything in-house at Fayt. There's not a single thing that we outsource from our
You didn't
website.
have anyone come in and mentor different situations or what have you?
No. So
Wow.
everyone is internal. And yeah, it's about like putting those right people in those right positions who know what they're doing and putting full trust in them and finding people that have the confidence within themselves as well. Like a lot of, especially like our management staff that are working in, I guess, higher level roles, like they have full autonomy with their roles. Like it's like, you own this, go do it, you know? So I guess it's been like a long process of building up our managers to know that they can like make their own decisions. Because when you're the CEO, there will be a lot of people going, is it all right if I do this? And is it all right if I'm going to go do that? Whereas now we're at a really good spot where everyone in Fayt kind of knows what they need to do. And they'll come to me if shit hits the fan or if they can't work it out. But yeah, it's just been, we've got a pretty in-depth hiring process at Fayt now, which we never had at the start, which no business would. I used to meet someone once and be like, you've got the job.
I used to do that too, and then you learn that's not how you do it.
No,
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, that person was so nice. I'm going to give them a job. Oh my God, we could be friends.
And then you sleep on it, you're like, maybe.
No.
Yeah, maybe no.
So yeah, just having like a really in-depth and thorough hiring process, asking the questions if you're not sure, having that fourth interview if you bloody need to, and just knowing what questions to ask people when you are hiring for a certain role, just finding those right people, it's vital.
And do you find like with the culture, right? Because if you have, you know, in that first warehouse, like one full-timer and two casuals through to, I'm imagining 2 years in, you had 20 or 30 odd people. Have you noticed that the culture changes from 10 to 20 to 30 to 60?
So much.
And how do you try to manage that?
It becomes, I feel like the more you grow and the bigger that your team gets, the more the culture hire becomes important.
Yeah.
So like, yes, when we're hiring, we're looking for people that can obviously do the job. Obviously, you're not going to hire someone that doesn't know what they're doing. But even more so, it begins the question, are they going to fit in with the team? Like, we look at who they're going to be working with. Is this person going to get along with this person? How are they going to work together? Are they going to clash heads? Is the person we're interviewing a little bit too headstrong for the person that they'll be working under? So there definitely is a lot of that. So yeah, when you're hiring, like, yes, you're looking for someone that can do the job, but you're also looking for someone that's going to fit in that team. And I think that's something, like, our workplace culture is really important to us. We're also really good now at being able to identify, like, if something is off, and that's something that you have to be really mindful of. Like, because if you've got a team of people and like one person is throwing it off, like, it can throw off the balance of the whole workplace. And as soon as that person's gone, you notice the change again. So I think we do a really good job of that as well.
Yeah, I saw Cohen Ray once said that it takes about 8 weeks to get a company culture in a good place and about 3 days to ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you just put one bad egg in there and like you mean no harm by saying that to anyone. Like everyone's different. But if you just put one bad egg in there, like you can undo all the work that you've done just by putting one wrong person in there. And I think as like when you're a small business, like that's really important is the hiring decisions that you make. And that's something that I didn't know when I started, like all business owners. I was like, yeah, this all seems fun. Come on, come work for me. And like, I didn't think, wait, where's this person going to be in 6 months and where's our company going to be in 6 months? Because all I could see was today. Whereas now when we're hiring, like we're thinking about the future and where this person will end up and do we see this person sticking around for a long time or are they just wanting a job to fill in the time kind of thing, especially when we're in this scaling phase. Like we're wanting to hire people that do want to kind of build a career with us and they want career progression and we want people that are passionate. So yeah, it's just really important to like think of all those angles. It's quite complex.
It's a lot to juggle, man.
When you talk about it, it's like shit. But we do a pretty good job of it and we're so thorough with our hiring and especially when it comes to opening these new stores. Like I know our community just says, oh, open here, open there. But it's like you've got to be so careful like when opening retail stores and then finding that amazing store manager because they're essentially going to run that thing for you. And then we have like an amazing national retail manager who they will work under. So yeah, like you make one wrong hiring decision, you can fuck up the whole thing.
Which is a lot of pressure.
It's so much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And then with your personal brand, do you find that can get in the way or hinder your ability to hire people? Because I imagine you've got people reaching out that are fans of you, that are wanting to just work for you because it's you. Like, do you find that having a personal brand in the midst of how big this company is a challenge outside the content creation regarding how people see you?
Definitely. And I think it would be interesting if someone, like we obviously are a women's fashion brand and we're on social media and have a huge following. So it's going to be pretty rare for someone to apply that like doesn't know who we are or who I am. Or you might. Like we have had a few that have just applied online and, oh, this is Fayt, haven't heard of us. But the chances of someone knowing me and knowing us are pretty high. I stepped out of hiring maybe 2 years ago. Up until that point, I was doing everything, the interviews, everything. But I got to a point where I realized I can't be a part of this process anymore. And it was better to put other people in there. And our team that do hiring at Fayt know the things to look out for. If someone is coming in for an interview and they say, oh, I love Fayt. I love everything that you do. I've followed online for so long. I've shopped online. I follow Britt. Love everything that she's doing. Like, I'd love to work at this company. We love that. Like, we want people that love us. Like, that's only going to make their job easier because they already love the brand and the product. But in the interview, if it's, I love Brittney, I'm obsessed with Brittney, like, you know, and they talk a
like
little bit.
Stalker alert, yeah.
Not stalker, but, you know, if they talk, and sometimes I might be nervous or whatever, but if they're talking too much about me or if they start talking about AJ or, oh, she does this and that, like our team that do the hiring know to kind of look out for that. Just because, like I've always said, obviously we love if people love Fayt and if they follow me, like we love that, but I wouldn't want that to be like the only reason that they want to work at Fayt. Like we want them to be passionate about our community, passionate about the company, passionate about their own growth within the company. Because I think if their only motive was, I want to work for Brittney because I love her, I feel like they'd be disappointed because I am the same person that I am online, but I'm not online when I'm at work. You know, I'm working. So it's not.
People forget you're not just making content all the time.
Yeah, like that. I always say like those fun videos that we post every single day, which can make it seem like that's all we do. Like that's a small fraction of our day. Like the rest of our day is putting out fires. Pretty much.
And on that, like regarding putting out the fires, running the company, how have you grown as you approach leadership, right? Because you're, you know, starting with a small team now, you have a big team. Like how many eras have you gone through of leadership styles?
So many.
Yeah.
Like when I started Fayt, like obviously I had no idea how to be a boss. I had no idea how to be a manager. Like I had never worked at anywhere more than a year. So there's no way I had like a management job at all. So I went into it with absolutely no clue. I didn't even know what management styles were. Like I was just Googling how to set up a shop in Australia, you know. So I've gone through so many eras. I would say the biggest era of management style that I went through was in the early days of Fayt when I did have those couple of employees, and it was my way too nice era. Way too nice, because
I had that era. Yeah.
I feel like every business owner does, and it's like you become besties with the staff that you hire.
We're friends.
Oh, we hang out after work.
Yeah.
Our partners are friends. We go to the pub. Don't get me wrong, I love taking everyone out and going to the pub and whatever, but it was so personal. And I have no regrets about that, because I feel like that's every entrepreneur's start of the journey is you are way too nice at the beginning, and then holy shit, what if something goes wrong? And then I've got to sit that person down and be like, hey, I don't really like the way that you did that. And then it becomes so awkward. I'd say one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten out of this whole experience of building a brand is like those personal learnings. Like you learn so much about yourself, and you know how to like carry yourself around people and how to act and what to say and what you shouldn't say. And, you know, back in the day, I would just sit there with my staff and we'd talk about our personal lives all day. And if we're pissed off about something with our partner, we'd rant about that. But I've really learned to kind of take a step back now. And obviously, like I'm so friendly with all of our staff, and we do so many fun things. Like we just took 20 of our staff from our office and warehouse out for a dinner literally just last week, and cocktails on us, and, you know, we have fun. But I've definitely learned over the years where you need to draw that line, just because it can become so tricky and blurry. So, yeah.
And what era are you in now?
The era that I'm in now, I think, would be putting a lot of trust into our, I don't like to say that there's like a hierarchy at Fayt, but like our employees that kind of are at the top of the tree. I'm in my era of like having them know that they can fully just have trust within themselves to do what they need to do and come to me when you need. And it's taken us a long time to get to that point, because I obviously was there from the beginning of Fayt, like packing orders, doing customer service emails, and I had to let go of all of those tasks over the years. But even just thinking back, like a year ago, like I was so caught up in the day-to-day operations of the business, and this casual at our Brisbane store has done this. Like I was so kept in the loop with everything, and it got to the point where I was like, I don't need to know this information anymore, because it's just overwhelming me when I'm trying to like run the business.
And it might be really interesting, but then you're like, I'm irrelevant here. Like I just need to delegate. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say like over the last 12 months, we've seen the most growth in like all of our staff knowing that I trust them, and kind of taking a step back and like going, you guys do your job and I'm here if you need. So whatever that era is the era that I'm in.
Back yourself era.
The back yourself era, but back them, like, you know.
Back them era.
And come to us if you need us, but you guys have got this. And that's what we're trying to do more and more. And we've just hired so many new people. Like our office went from like 4 people to like 11 or something, because we're just putting people in all those positions. So I don't have to be involved with the roster in our Westfield Miranda store day to day, or, you know, worrying about, someone needs to cover this person's shift. So yeah, I'm in my step back and trust the process era.
Love it.
But I'm still right here, obviously.
And then with your personal brand, it's kind of changing, right? Because you were someone who was creating content about building a business. Now you're kind of a symbol of, you know, what women want to become one day, right? They want to become the CEO of a company, or start their own e-commerce business, or start their own retail business. What's been your experience with so many people looking up to you as someone to kind of not idolize, but look up to and kind of follow in their footsteps?
Again, because this whole journey has been so organic, and because I never set out to be that, it still feels weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if you want to look up to me, that's fine. But I understand why people would, because they're like, wow, you've done all this on your own. I guess that's something I'm really proud of. Like I'll always proudly say, you know, like I've bootstrapped Fayt. Like we've never taken a loan. We've never had any investors or anything like that. So I guess when I think about it, that is pretty inspiring.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's just like the Newy girl in me. Like I just feel like me from Newy, like nothing's changed, but obviously everything's changed at the same time. But I still feel the same as like when I was making those YouTube videos. I just so happen to like do all these cool things now. So to be someone that people look up to, like, I think is awesome. Not that that was ever part of my plan, but then again, like, nothing was ever part of my plan, but here we are.
So you don't feel like that hinders like the decision making or like how you continue to make content? You're conscious of it and you're like, cool, but it doesn't really.
Yeah, not at all. Like, I think since the beginning, I've always never really cared about the kind of content that I'm posting. I've always just posted what I felt like I wanted to post and I enjoyed making. So I still very much feel that way. Obviously, I'm not going to go making content I could get cancelled for. Like, I'm mindful with that. But yeah, like everything that I post is still feels really organic to me. And like I said before, the fact that I get to make content that is fun and engaging and entertaining, but it's about my business as well, is just like the cherry on top.
Yeah. And that within that, like the fact that you're in this position now and people are kind of attaching this label to you, do you find that there are any challenges in that, being a young female entrepreneur that runs such a large company? Like, have there been any challenges that have caught you off guard or something that you weren't expecting?
No. No, if I'm being honest, no.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. And then your gut, it sounds like you have like a really good natured gut. Like you just kind of do a lot of go with it, right? Like I think in some people's minds, the fact that you jumped in on the contract, jumped in on the lease, jumped in on these ideas, for some it might seem like a nightmare because it's like a lot of responsibility, a lot all at once. Do you feel like there's a part of you that's just, you trust your gut and you have a good cadence of like, I'll figure it out as I go?
Yeah, I don't know where I got that from, but I'm very grateful that I do have that. And I don't know if it stems from childhood or something. I've never been to therapy, but I always say, like, I reckon if I went to therapy, I would find out why I am the way that I am. I think it's just been a journey of making those steps one after the other, like ever since those YouTube videos. Like I feel like that's where it started. Like I took a chance on that and it paid off. So then I thought, oh, I'll take a chance on this. I'll get this next warehouse. And now it's almost like I don't have any fear when it comes to making any decision. And like now we're going on to store number 5 and people are like, you're fucking crazy, like in this economy. And I'm like, fuck it, like it's gonna work. So yeah, I think it's just making one decision after the other. Like I've learned that's when stuff happens. Like you don't just sit back and things happen.
And I guess like some people might look at it like you before were saying that there's fires to put out and there's problems here and there and there's different challenges, but like what's your outlook? Like what's like your mantra? How do you kind of carry yourself and see the world?
I always say to my team, like there's nothing that we can't handle. It doesn't matter like how messed up it feels at the time or how stressed we feel. Like every single challenge that we've been faced in business, we look back now and we worked it out. So I kind of always see everything as like not, like it is a big deal, but at the same time, everything isn't that big of a deal. Like no matter what it is, especially now when there's so many of us, like we can work together and figure out any challenge. We'll always somehow try to turn like that negative into a positive. Like what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
The business shuts down.
Big whoop.
We'll just start another one.
Start another one. Yeah.
But
maybe
yeah,
a spray tanning business. Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll go back to that. $15 a pop. Come on down. I think they're like $60 now or something. So I was really ripping myself off. But I just think like with all the years practice that I have under my belt now, like we've dealt with so much. And what's crazy is I know that it's still like only the beginning of dealing with challenges, but like you learn so much with every challenge that comes your way in business. You learn how to do better for next time. All right, we should have handled that a bit differently. This is how we'll do it next time. So if anything, I feel like the challenges become easier in a way because you've just fucked up so many times.
Yeah, and I think it's in those fuck ups that the beauty really appears.
Oh, you learn so much, like personally, as a business, how to handle things. Fuck, maybe we should hire someone in that area of our business to help us if something in that area ever happens again. Yeah, like it's all just learning and growing.
Yeah, like we we're talking about this before the pod, like Diary of a CEO has a job title, which is head of failure.
That's
I don't know what that
insane.
means, but it sounds great. Yeah.
What, when a podcast flops?
I don't know. But it sounds amazing.
We better not do that again.
Like imagine that when you're dating someone, like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a head of failure. You know?
Yeah,
what is that?
I'll have to look into that.
Sounds serious. Okay, so then what's the most maybe helpful negative feedback you've ever gotten? Something that rattled you, but then it's helped in some kind of way.
I would say the most amount of negative feedback that we've ever gotten has come through having retail stores, because it's one thing to have an online store where people are buying online, but to have retail stores, like you're opening up a whole other can of worms. You're having people come into your business physically, and, you know, it's just completely different to them ordering something online, having it show up, try it on. Like they might try it on at home and not like it, send it back, or they might send us some feedback or leave us a review on our top and say like, I didn't like the fit of this top. So obviously we can learn from that. This is also why it's so scary opening more stores, is because you are like opening up that human experience. And one of the challenges I guess we have is like, I have this vision for our retail stores and I'll sing it to the top of my lungs on social media. Like, this is our stores. Look how beautiful they are. I'll preach everything that we do in stores. Like, this is the experience that you're going to have. So then you're opening up people to come in and experience that. And if they don't experience that, then that falls back on me.
Like they come in one day, someone's busy, they don't get talked to.
Yeah. Someone's having a shit day, or, you know, like there's so many factors that come into it. Maybe they're just feeling off that day. And then it's like, hey, Brittany, you said in your TikTok that
this would be my experience, and it wasn't.
And I went in and it wasn't. And I think that's feedback that has like hurt me the most. And like, I'm not saying it happens all the time. Like compared to the shining reviews that we get, it's like 1 in a million, but it definitely does stick out. And I guess that's the type of scenario that does like force us to grow the most and change the way that we do things. Because straight away we want to fix that for that person. It's let's get on the phone to the customer. Let's hear them out. Let's hear their story. Then let's go and chat with the team that was working that day. And we go the extra mile. We invite that customer back in again. We will put them with the right person and redo their experience completely. And you'd be surprised at how many people say yes to that. You think people would go, no, I'm never coming back. That was shit, blah, blah, blah. But people are like, okay. And they give us another chance. And it always ends positively. But I'd say, yeah, that's the biggest type of negative feedback we receive is through those retail stores and those real life experiences. Because it's one thing to order something online and be disappointed by it, but like to go out of your way to go to a store and be disappointed like in person, it's just another level.
Especially when they're a huge fan, you talk it up,
and
they go in there.
That's what's so hard, I guess, for me as well, is I am not my employees. Like, I am not my staff that are working on the floor every day. We can do all the training in the world. We can drill our brand messaging into their heads. But fuck, at the end of the day, like, they're just people. Like, they're not puppets. I can't make them be 10 out of 10, 24/7. I wouldn't expect that of them because we're all human. We have our off days, our off moments. So I think that's one thing that I've really learned to cop on the chin when we do receive negative feedback. Like, I used to get really upset by it and be like, fuck, like, you know, but I've just come to learn, like, the more popular we get, the more customers we're going to have, and like the higher the chance of them not having that experience is going to be, and just learning to be okay with that, I would say.
Yeah. It sounds like you're doing a wonderful job, like really trying to juggle all these hats, backing your team, allowing them to really take the wheel and take everything to another level. For you, regarding content creation, because this is something I really want to take your perspective on. If I could just download your brain for 10 minutes, that'd be amazing. When it comes to like making content, earlier you talked about, okay, we don't want to just follow trends. We want to create trends.
Yes.
When you look at social media, like how do you see it? Like what lens do you treat it through? Because some people look at social media and go, okay, this is a license to sell. And there's an art form to doing that. But then when you look at social media, what do you see and how do you approach it?
I think, especially for brands and products, social media has changed so much over the last 10 years. And I think the fact that I have been on social media for all that time has been really valuable, especially coming from an influencer background. Back in the day, brands would pay me, or you could pay influencers to literally hold up a, toothpaste or the can of V next to their head and post a photo and say, buy this, it's great. And businesses could do that as well. Instagram used to just be like cool product photos, and then that would convert to sales. And that was the way that Instagram went. I think a lot of business owners that have been around for a while are still stuck in that, and they will post products of their photos and be like, why am I not making any sales? But that has changed so drastically now. There's obviously so many more businesses and brands out there now than ever before. And consumers are sick of it. Like they're sick of just seeing a photo of a product and thinking that they need to, like they won't buy it if that's all you're posting. So I think what I see social media as, and I guess what I always have seen it as, is it's an entertainment platform. Like people want to be entertained or inspired, or they want to laugh, or they want to learn something. And you could post a funny video, and even if it's got nothing to do with your products, like you don't understand how powerful creating that piece of content can actually be. And it can convert to sales. We can post a stupid video in our warehouse dancing and it can convert to sales. So I think the way that I view social media, I guess, is the way that I always have viewed it. It's just a fun platform or an educational platform. Like educate your consumers and followers about your product, but in an entertaining way maybe. They always like, what's the rule? Like it takes people how many times to see a product before they actually buy it?
I think it's up to like 36 or 37.
Yeah, so I think back in the day it used to be like 3 and now it's like 36, which is crazy. But yeah, you can't just post a photo and sell things anymore. Like I'm sure you can and sales would trickle through, but you've got to like create a more human experience on your social media these days.
So when you say a human experience, like what are some things that people can be conscious of, right? Because I think it can be easy to get that wrong. It's like, oh, I film myself doing something, but then it still comes across salesy or it still comes across gimmicky. Like, do you have a recipe or like a framework of thinking of like, okay, when we make a piece of content, it needs to kind of, you know, strike these notes and it must not be these other things?
I think as much as our content is well executed and thought out, it also isn't at the same time. And I don't know if that makes any sense.
It feels like off the wall, like filmed in that moment.
It feels off the cuff.
Yeah.
I would say one thing that we're always trying to do is grab someone's attention as quickly as we can. Not, again, like what social media used to be. Like I would make my old YouTube videos and I'd be like, hey everyone, welcome back to today's video. So in today's video, I'm going to be. So now in social media, cut that shit. Get straight to the point. People have no attention spans, as we've been.
It's like no intro, straight into the meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get to the point straight away. Say something that's going to grab someone's attention. Use like clever hooks, you know, like you're not going to believe that this happened. Or I can't believe I wasted my money on this. Or anything along those lines. I feel like we're always trying to grab people's attention because like they say, like the first 2 to 3 seconds is all you've got to grab someone's attention. If not, they'll swipe to the next one. So I would say like as short as it is, those first 2 to 3 seconds of your video are everything. And it's becoming more and more that way. So get to that punchline straight away and cut out all the other crap would be my piece of advice when it comes to content.
And then with Fayt, are you trying to diversify how you guys produce content so it's not just you?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the plan with that?
Well, we obviously shoot with a lot of models. And even then, like that in itself has changed because, again, Instagram just a few years ago was all about like pretty videos and photos and campaign stunning pictures and videos. But even now we're finding like with our models, we are getting them to do like more trendy kinds of videos. Like we're whipping out the microphone and they're talking, which must be so interesting for models as well because they're always just known to be beautiful and look amazing in the clothes and they just show up and pose. Whereas now we're needing models that can do both. And what's interesting is not all of them can. Like they don't have the knack maybe for talking on the camera. So yeah, we're working with models all the time to obviously not have me be the center of attention all the time. And at the moment we are, well, everyone like in our workplace is kind of in the videos every now and then, like you'll see in our warehouse and stuff, but we've put like a bit of a strategy in place to have AJ, my partner, in more of the content because we've noticed anytime he's in it, even though he doesn't care for social media at all, whenever he's in it, like the comments go crazy. Like they're like, AJ, we love AJ. We want to see more AJ. Like every video, if you go and look at the comments, like the top comment will be more AJ. And so we kind of listen to our community and notice trends. And so now April, who works with me, she is creating a content plan for AJ and has like content goals of we have to do like 2 videos a week minimum that are starring AJ. And we're working a little at the moment as well. You'll see like so many brands now, the people that work at the brand are almost becoming the face of the brand. And we've had our social media team like dabble in that, but we're working more towards that, is like creating personal brands of our employees on our socials, which is exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah, that runs a risk of like, what if they leave or what have you?
And then people go, where'd they go?
Yeah.
You know, so that's again like where you got to draw the line of like how much you actually share about your staff. But that's the way that we are seeing brands shift, is like their staff are becoming content creators of their own brand.
So for those that are listening to this right now and they have a business, whether it's e-commerce or retail or what have you, what's your advice around, okay, they've never really dabbled with content creation before. And a twofold question: do you think it's crucial that they need to have some kind of content where they do show a human experience of some kind? And then second to that, like, how should they approach it?
I asked this to my friend who's in business, and I said, do you think people like can have businesses these days without being on social media? And she was like, no, like, because I can't imagine a world where we weren't on social media, because it's everything. But then we think back to 30 years ago or whatever, and it wasn't a thing. So how did they make their businesses grow back then? Word of mouth, TV, radio. I think businesses need to be on social media in 2024, and I'm loving seeing like all the different kinds of businesses that are showing up on my socials and the different ways that they're advertising. I saw this real estate agent in America. I don't know if you've seen him, and he does these things. I think they're called speed tours. I don't know if you've seen them, but
it's like a speed run in a video game, but
so he is out the front of the house, and it's just so funny because like real estate, it's kind of boring, right? But he's out the front, he's like, welcome to this house here, let's take a tour. And then he runs, and then someone follows him, and he like runs in one room and goes, here's a bathroom. And then he runs and he goes up the stairs.
Also, someone fast forward, he's actually doing it
No,
fast.
like he runs through the whole house, and like you see the whole house in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he does like really funny things when he gets into each room. Like he'll run ahead of the camera guy, and then he'll be like sitting on the toilet with his legs wide open. So like I'm loving that. And then I saw another account pop up on TikTok the other day of this car yard in Sydney. Like just this random account like showed up, and it's, you know, the guys that work at the car yard are getting on there and like making videos in the car yard and interviewing people like, what are you looking for today? And I've seen fruit shops do the same. I don't know if you've seen, but like there's these viral fruit shops. They must be in Sydney as well. And they get on and like show all their specials, and like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, like you can create content for your business. It doesn't matter if you're selling fruit, if you're selling cars, if you're making something at home, like there is content that you can create. And it's just a matter, like I said before, of just giving it a go. Putting the videos out there. Don't worry about them being perfect, especially if you're getting started. It's all about just trying until you find that thing that works.
And not just like selling, but like trying to
have personality in it, make it fun.
Have some fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen our public transport here in Sydney that have their own social media? It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, and I'm loving seeing like all the government accounts and like whoever's
like, who would have thought our government would be like, yo, we have to have a savvy, youthful social media plan.
I even see like New South Wales Police Force like have a TikTok, and like they go and comment things like on other businesses' profiles, and it's obviously like a Gen Z person running the socials because they're leaving all these hilarious comments. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing for your business, like you can make content out of it. It's just about thinking about it and thinking, how can I make this fun? Like that real estate agent, instead of going, here we are at 21 Smith Street, let's take a look. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to run really fast and be stupid. And like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, there was another guy here in Sydney who like shows you the worst property at the highest price. He's like, this is what 2.7 million will get you in Sydney. And it's like a rundown, decrepit, falling apart house.
Yeah.
And he's like, see, this is all you're going to get here. It's just funny. And I think when you make content from a place of personality and intrigue and something that's different, people pay attention, right?
Yep. People also really love controversy. So if you can include anything controversial in your content, that always performs really well. I've also noticed in our content, if I speak in a smart ass tone, that performs really well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta try that.
Like if you're a bit of a smart ass, or I find that works
you're a little
really
snappy,
well.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just anything that's gonna grab someone's attention, really.
Well, here's the great thing about Fayt. Like if you look at it, like how much would you attribute the success of Fayt purely to your personal brands? Like where do you think Fayt would be right now if you didn't have a personality and a social media account?
Like I want to say that I don't think it would exist. But I hate to say that.
But if let's just imagine you didn't have like this knack for creating content and you started the same idea, how far down the road do you think it would be potentially?
What, and I wasn't allowed to get in any of the content?
Well, you were allowed to, but let's just say you didn't have like the experience since you were 14. Let's imagine you just didn't have the
experience behind
the experience and the personal brand and the energy, and you weren't.
But I was still me.
You were just still you, but you weren't doing it the way you have, I guess, in the last 6 years. It's a tricky question.
I think I could still do it the way that I'm doing it. I'd obviously just be starting from the very beginning. And I think the good thing as well is now I would obviously have a lot of other brands to look at. Like, if you don't know what to create for your business, like go and search 10 other businesses that are similar to yours. See what they're posting online. Like, there's no harm in seeing what everyone else is doing. Like, writing down ideas, going, well, this brand does this and it performs really well. This brand, which is also similar to us, does this, but this performs really well for them. And like, do your market research that way if you have no real clue, and kind of use that as your inspiration to then like come up with something that's a bit of your own. But also, like, everything is really similar on social media nowadays. Like, nothing's really original. So yeah, I think I would do that.
So try to find things that like are similar industries, or if not the same industry as yourself, and then go, what are they doing and who's crushing it? And then how do
or
I
even like look at other businesses that are like not like yours at all, and see what they're doing and think, how can I put a spin on it to make that more catered to my niche? You know?
Yeah. And I like how much you've just touched on, like, just getting out there, having a crack, experimenting, having fun with it. Don't have to have a perfect plan or the perfect criteria. I think it's just letting go of some of the perfect planning part of ourselves and just having a good hard bash at just having a crack at it.
That's still how I run my business to this day, to be honest. Like, we've got a lot of procedures and policies in place, but I'm still winging it every day. And I think that's the way to do it, to be honest.
For someone who's like early in their journey, if you could download a mantra out of your minds and implant it in them and they could carry it with them every day, what might that be?
Like a saying?
Yeah, like a catchphrase or like a thought process or a reframe.
I have one saying that I say to everyone all the time, but it's not so much about building a business, but I guess it is. But one thing that I always like to say and remind myself of, and I feel like it's so helpful, is hard conversations, easy life, easy conversations, hard life.
Ooh.
I love that, and I always say it because in business, you're going to have tough conversations. You're going to have tricky conversations. You might have to negotiate with someone and it makes you feel uncomfortable. You might have to sit down a staff member and say, hey, I noticed you did this, which was a bit of a stuff up. And like, no one likes doing that. But I've found by having those hard conversations in life, your life will be easier. Whereas if you always push things under the rug or don't step outside your comfort zone and have those easy conversations, your life's going to be harder. So really embrace that.
I love that. It's a great mantra. I'm stealing that one myself.
Please. Anytime you have to have a tough conversation, just think of that. Like, as soon as you're done with it, whatever it is, like, your life is going to be so much easier.
Tough conversations, easy life. Easy conversations, hard life.
Yeah.
Now, last question is, what's next for you?
That's a good question because I didn't think I would be where I am now.
It's a tough one, right? Because you're like, I've already done everything. What's next?
I know, but also at the same time, there is no end to it. What next? I think more retail stores, but scaling at a rate that we can sustain. We're also going to be dabbling in a bit of beauty. So we've been working on some lip oil products for honestly 2 years now. We're about to launch those this year, so I'm excited to see how that goes. Maybe try and get into Mecca or something. I don't know.
So it's like a separate business
like
idea?
a sub brand of Fayt. And yeah, just continuing to scale Fayt, I guess, and getting the word out there more, get some new customers here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, I don't really have like a massive end goal because, like I said, like I never thought I would be here 5 years ago, and here we are. So heck, if I stayed this way for the next however long, I'd be so happy with that. But obviously I want to keep scaling and see. I think I like the challenge of seeing how far I can push this thing. I think that's what the whole thing is. It's just seeing how far I can take it.
I just love your perspective. I love your energy, how you see the whole idea of growing a company of like, it's exciting to me. Let's give it a crack. Let's see what happens with it. And then take the feedback on the chin and then try to do something good with it and trying to look after your team and not stay in your too nice era and grow and evolve yourself.
In saying that, I'm not an absolute bitch, but you know, you got to have balance. Oh, great.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot.
Me too. I felt like we could sit here for hours.
And we could continue to jam out for sure. Yeah, but I know you're busy, but thank you so much. And we'll have to have you back again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.